The Restaurant Incident. Part 1. The Conflict Begins. It was a warm Saturday evening, and the air was filled with the sounds of laughter and clinking glasses as patrons enjoyed their meals at Bella's Bistro, a trendy restaurant known for its vibrant atmosphere and delicious cuisine. A group of 5 friends, Jasmine, Malik, Aisha, Jordan, and Tasha, had been looking forward to this night for weeks. They were celebrating Malik's birthday, and the excitement was palpable as they arrived at the restaurant, dressed to impress and ready for a night of fun. As they approached the entrance, Jasmine checked her watch, noting that they were right on time for their reservation. "We made it. I can't wait to dig into that chocolate lava cake," she said, her eyes sparkling with anticipation. The group shared a collective grin, their spirits high as they entered the bustling restaurant. However, as they approached the host stand, the mood began to shift. The host, a young man with a clipboard, greeted them with a polite smile but quickly glanced at the reservation book. "Ah, yes, the table for 5. I'll just check on that for you," he said, his tone friendly but his demeanor slightly distracted. The friends exchanged glances, their excitement momentarily dimmed as they waited. After a few minutes, the host returned, still smiling. "I'm sorry for the wait. It looks like your table isn't quite ready yet. If you could just wait a moment, I'll get you seated as soon as possible." "Sure, no problem," Malik replied, trying to keep the mood light. "We'll just hang out here for a bit." The group moved to the waiting area, where they chatted and laughed, trying to maintain their enthusiasm despite the delay. As they waited, they noticed several groups of white patrons arriving after them. To their surprise, these groups were promptly seated, their laughter and chatter filling the air. Jasmine's brow furrowed as she watched the scene unfold. "Didn't we have a reservation?" she whispered to Aisha, who nodded in agreement, her expression mirroring Jasmine's concern. Minutes turned into what felt like an eternity. The friends exchanged uneasy glances, their initial excitement giving way to confusion and frustration. "This is ridiculous," Tasha finally said, her voice low but firm. "We've been waiting for over 20 minutes, and they're seating people who just walked in." Malik, who had been trying to stay positive, felt his patience wearing thin. "Let's ask the host again." "This isn't right," he said, determination in his voice. The group nodded in agreement, and Malik approached the host stand once more, his heart racing as he prepared to voice their concerns. "Excuse me," Malik said, trying to keep his tone calm. "We made a reservation for 5, and we've been waiting for quite a while now. I noticed that other groups are being seated before us. Is there any update on our table?" The host looked up, his smile faltering slightly. "I'm really sorry about the wait. We're just a bit backed up tonight. I promise I'll get you seated as soon as possible," he replied, but Malik could sense the lack of urgency in his voice. As Malik returned to his friends, he could see the disappointment etched on their faces. "He said they're backed up, but it doesn't feel right," he admitted, frustration bubbling beneath the surface. "We need to figure out what's going on." The group huddled together, their excitement for the evening now overshadowed by a growing sense of unease. They couldn't shake the feeling that their race was playing a role in the way they were being treated. The atmosphere in the restaurant, once vibrant and inviting, now felt charged with tension as they waited for a resolution that seemed increasingly unlikely. As they stood there, the laughter of the seated patrons echoed around them, a stark reminder of the disparity in treatment. The friends exchanged glances, silently acknowledging the discomfort they felt. They had come to celebrate, but now they were left questioning whether they truly belonged in this space. Little did they know, the night was about to take a turn that would challenge their resolve and ultimately lead them to seek justice for the unfair treatment they had experienced. Part 2. Escalation. As the minutes dragged on, the group's frustration began to boil over. Malik, feeling a mix of anger and disappointment, turned to his friends. "We can't just stand here and let this happen. We deserve to be treated with respect, just like everyone else in this restaurant." Jasmine nodded, her eyes narrowing as she scanned the room. "I agree. We need to make our voices heard. This isn't just about the wait, it's about how we're being treated because of who we are." With a newfound determination, Malik approached the host stand again, this time with his friends by his side. "Excuse me," he said, his voice steady but firm. "We've been waiting for over 30 minutes, and we had a reservation. We've seen multiple groups seated before us, and it feels like we're being overlooked because of our race." The host's expression shifted, and he glanced around nervously. I assure you that's not the case. We're just experiencing some delays tonight, he replied, but Malik could sense the defensiveness in his tone. Look, we understand that things can get busy, but this isn't just about the wait. It's about how we're being treated, Aisha interjected, her voice rising slightly. We came here to celebrate, and instead, we're feeling disrespected. The host shifted uncomfortably, and Malik could see the tension in his posture. I'll see what I can do, he said, but his lack of urgency only fueled the group's frustration. As they stepped away from the stand, they could feel the eyes of other patrons on them, some looking sympathetic, while others seemed indifferent. Let's not give up, Tasha said, her voice resolute. We deserve to be heard. If we don't stand up for ourselves, who will? The group decided to take action. They pulled out their phones and began recording a video, documenting their experience in real time. Malik spoke directly to the camera, explaining their situation and the unfair treatment they had faced. We made a reservation, and we're being ignored while others are seated before us. This is not okay, he said, his voice steady and clear. As they recorded, a few sympathetic patrons nearby began to take notice. One woman, a white customer who had been seated shortly after the group arrived, approached them. I saw what happened, she said softly. I'm really sorry. This isn't right. I'll speak to the manager if you'd like. Thank you, Malik replied, grateful for her support. We appreciate it. We just want to be treated fairly. The woman nodded and walked toward the manager, who was overseeing the dining room. As she spoke to him, the group continued to record their experience, feeling empowered by the support of a stranger. They knew that they were not alone in this fight. After a few moments, the manager approached the group, his expression serious. I understand there's been a misunderstanding, he said, his tone more conciliatory. I apologize for the wait. We value all our customers, and I want to make this right. Please, follow me to your table. The friends exchanged glances, a mix of relief and skepticism washing over them. Thank you, Malik said cautiously, but he couldn't shake the feeling that this was just a temporary fix. They followed the manager through the restaurant, passing by tables filled with patrons who were enjoying their meals, their laughter ringing in the air. As they reached their table, the manager gestured for them to sit. I'll have your drinks and appetizers out shortly on the house, he said, attempting to smooth over the situation. While the gesture was appreciated, the group couldn't help but feel that the damage had already been done. Once seated, they took a moment to collect their thoughts. This isn't over, Aisha said firmly. We need to make sure that this doesn't happen to anyone else. We have to speak out. Malik nodded in agreement. We should share our story. If we can raise awareness about what happened tonight, maybe we can help change things for the better. As they settled into their seats, the group felt a renewed sense of purpose. They were determined to turn their negative experience into a catalyst for change, not just for themselves but for others who might face similar discrimination. The night was still young, and while they had faced adversity, they were ready to fight for justice and ensure that their voices were heard. Part 3. Seeking Justice. As the group settled into their seats, the initial excitement of the evening was overshadowed by the weight of their experience. They ordered their drinks and appetizers, but the atmosphere felt different now, tinged with a sense of urgency and determination. Malik, Jasmine, Aisha, Jordan, and Tasha knew they had to take action beyond just sharing their story among themselves. Let's create a social media post about what happened tonight, Malik suggested, pulling out his phone. We can share our experience and encourage others to speak out against discrimination in restaurants and other public spaces. The group quickly agreed, and they began drafting a post together. They wrote about their reservation, the unfair treatment they faced, and the importance of standing up against racism. They included the hashtag #JusticeAtBellaBistro, hoping to raise awareness and spark a conversation about the need for change. Once they were satisfied with the post, they hit publish and watched as their words began to spread. Within minutes, likes and comments started pouring in from friends and family, expressing support and solidarity. The group felt a surge of empowerment as they realized that their voices were being amplified. As they enjoyed their appetizers, they discussed their next steps. We should reach out to local news outlets, Aisha suggested. If we can get them to cover our story, it might encourage the restaurant to take this issue seriously. Jordan nodded, his eyes bright with enthusiasm. And we can also contact local civil rights organizations. They might have resources or advice on how to address this situation effectively. With a plan in place, the group finished their meal, their spirits lifted by the support they had received online. They left the restaurant feeling a sense of purpose, ready to take on the challenge ahead. As they walked to their cars, they noticed a few patrons who had witnessed their earlier confrontation. Some offered encouraging smiles, while others looked away, clearly uncomfortable. Once they were back at Malik's house, the group gathered around his living room, laptops and phones in hand. They began researching local civil rights organizations and drafting emails to news outlets. The atmosphere was charged with energy as they worked together, fueled by a shared commitment to justice. After a few hours of brainstorming and planning, they had a solid strategy. They decided to reach out to a local news station, a popular online publication, and a civil rights group known for advocating against discrimination. They crafted a compelling email detailing their experience at Bella's Bistro, emphasizing the need for accountability and change. "Let's send these out tonight," Malik said, his voice steady. "We need to act quickly while the momentum is still with us." As they hit send on their emails, a sense of relief washed over them. They had taken the first steps toward seeking justice, and they were determined to see it through. The group spent the rest of the evening discussing their hopes for the future, envisioning a world where everyone would be treated with respect, regardless of their race. The next morning, they awoke to a flurry of notifications on their phones. Their social media post had gone viral, garnering attention from not only friends and family but also local activists and community leaders. People were sharing their own experiences of discrimination, and the hashtag Justice at Bella Bistro was trending in their area. Excited but anxious, the group gathered again to discuss the overwhelming response. "This is incredible," Jasmine said, her eyes wide with disbelief. "We're really making an impact." Just then, Malik's phone buzzed with a notification. It was a message from a local news reporter who had seen their post and wanted to interview them about their experience. "This is our chance," Malik exclaimed, his heart racing. "We need to tell our story to a wider audience." They quickly agreed to the interview, knowing that it would provide a platform to raise awareness about the discrimination they faced and the importance of standing up against it. As they prepared for the interview, they felt a mix of nerves and excitement, ready to share their truth and advocate for change. The group knew that their journey was just beginning, but they were united in their mission. They were determined to ensure that their voices were heard, not just for themselves but for anyone who had ever faced discrimination. Together, they would fight for justice and work toward a future where everyone could enjoy a meal out without fear of prejudice. Part 4. Resolution. The day of the interview arrived, and the group gathered at Malik's house, dressed in their best outfits, ready to make a statement. A local news crew arrived, setting up cameras and microphones in the living room. The atmosphere was charged with anticipation as they prepared to share their story. The reporter, a compassionate woman named Sarah, introduced herself and explained the format of the interview. "I want to make sure your voices are heard clearly. Just speak from the heart about what happened and how it made you feel," she encouraged. As the cameras began rolling, Malik took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the moment. "Thank you for being here," he started, glancing at his friends for support. "We want to share our experience at Bella's Bistro because we believe it's important to address the discrimination that people of color often face in public spaces." Jasmine chimed in, her voice steady. "We made a reservation to celebrate Malik's birthday, but instead of being welcomed, we were ignored while other groups were seated before us. It felt like our presence didn't matter simply because of the color of our skin." Aisha added, "It was disheartening to see how quickly the staff accommodated white patrons while we were left waiting. We felt disrespected and devalued, and it's not just about this one incident. It's about a larger issue of systemic racism that affects so many people." The reporter nodded, encouraging them to continue. "How did this experience impact you personally?" she asked. Jordan spoke up, his voice filled with emotion. "It made me question whether we truly belong in spaces like that. It's exhausting to constantly have to prove that we deserve to be treated with respect. We shouldn't have to fight for our right to enjoy a meal out with friends." Tasha, who had been quiet until now, found her voice. "We want to raise awareness about these issues and encourage others to speak out. It's not just about us, it's about everyone who has faced similar discrimination. We need to hold establishments accountable for their actions." As they spoke, the group felt a sense of empowerment. They were no longer just a group of friends facing an unfair situation. They were advocates for change, using their voices to shine a light on an important issue. The interview continued, with Sarah asking thoughtful questions that allowed them to express their feelings and hopes for the future. After the interview wrapped up, the crew packed up their equipment, and Sarah thanked them for sharing their story. "Your courage to speak out is inspiring," she said. "I believe this will resonate with many people in our community." As the news crew left, the group felt a mix of relief and exhilaration. They had taken a significant step toward raising awareness about the discrimination they faced, and they were hopeful that their story would spark change. In the days that followed, the news segment aired, and the response was overwhelming. The community rallied around them, with many people sharing their own experiences of discrimination and expressing solidarity. Local activists reached out, offering support and resources to help the group continue their advocacy. The restaurant, Bella's Bistro, faced significant backlash as the story gained traction. Many patrons began to boycott the establishment, demanding accountability for the treatment of the group. In response, the restaurant's management issued a public apology, acknowledging the incident and committing to implementing diversity training for their staff. The group was invited to meet with the restaurant's management to discuss their experience and suggest ways to improve the dining environment for all customers. During the meeting, they shared their thoughts on the importance of inclusivity and respect, emphasizing that change was necessary to prevent similar incidents in the future. The management listened attentively, and by the end of the meeting, they expressed a genuine desire to make amends. They agreed to host community events focused on diversity and inclusion, inviting local leaders and organizations to participate. The group felt a sense of accomplishment, knowing that their voices had made a difference. As the weeks went by, the friends continued their advocacy work, collaborating with local organizations to raise awareness about racism and discrimination. They organized community forums, sharing their story and encouraging others to speak out against injustice. Their efforts inspired many in the community to join the fight for equality, creating a ripple effect of change. Through their determination and courage, Malik, Jasmine, Aisha, Jordan, and Tasha transformed a painful experience into a powerful movement for justice. They had not only sought justice for themselves, but had also become advocates for others who faced similar challenges. Their story became a beacon of hope, reminding everyone that standing up against discrimination could lead to meaningful change. In the end, the group celebrated Malik's birthday together, this time at a different restaurant that welcomed them with open arms. As they raised their glasses in a toast, they reflected on their journey and the impact they had made. They knew that while the fight against racism was far from over, they had taken significant steps toward creating a more inclusive and equitable community for all.